Okay, hello. I'm doing a demonstration of 4x5 family portrait for my good friend Tammy Sudra. And in addition to a basic 4x5 demonstration, I also have a couple of other DSLRs going on 1-minute self-timers because I'm interested in showing many moments at the same time, which is a whole nother thing. And then of course I have this video going. I'll be shooting a Shamanix 4x5 field camera, which is a really nice and also relatively inexpensive 4x5 setup. Very light, has a carbon fiber base, but who really cares? I've already set up a lot of things. I actually used micro four thirds camera to frame up my shot, which I haven't framed super tightly like you might sometimes do with the DSLR, but nonetheless I have this micro four thirds camera with a couple different lenses that match my 4x5 focal lengths. So I really use this as my viewfinder in setting up a shot. So I already have it all set up. I'll include some of the various stills in the final video here so you can kind of see. But I can also use this for metering. My preliminary metering with this camera was really about right, and that was for ISO 400, which is the film speed I'll use, and f/16 for the aperture, and about 1/60th of a second. And I'll show you a little bit of the setup of this. So I have it already on the tripod here, just in the interest of time. Now I'm folding up the rear standard, putting on the front standard. Just screws in, but with markings that let you get it in the right spot. Screw it down. There we go. And a 4x5 camera really is just a projection room. I mean, as all cameras are. And so it's really just empty in there. This is a bag bellows, which is really good for wide and super wide lenses, which is pretty much all I shoot. This more standard thing would be a pleated bellows, but that's not as flexible as a bag bellows. So looking in there, it's just nothing except the ground glass on the other side. All the action comes in with the lens, and so I've set this up for my normal lens, which on 35mm equivalent, which is how most people talk about lens focal lengths, for whatever reason. Those are typically 50mm lenses, or anywhere 40 to 50mm lenses in 35mm equivalent. On a 4x5, because your normal lens and focal length always varies in proportion to either your sensor size or your film size. So in this case, the equivalent wide normal lens, because that's what a 40mm would be on a 35mm, it's kind of a wide normal, that's 150mm on a 4x5. So I have a 150mm lens here, and then on my micro four thirds camera that translates to a 20mm normal lens. Now all the sort of camera stuff is built into the lens. I mean, in other words, there's a shutter in the lens, and there's the aperture in the lens. So I'm going to set it to f/16. Well, actually, first I need to set up my shot. So I'm going to open the lens all the way so I have as bright view as possible. This lens opens up to f/5.6, which for 4x5 is pretty wide open. And then there's a little switch on the side here. Here, I'll take it off and show you. There's a little switch on the side that switches you between setup mode and shooting mode. So right now it's in shooting mode, and so I could fire the shutter if I wanted. So here I'll set it to a half second that you can really hear, and fire it. So that was half a second. You cock it right there. Do that again. Fire it, and then you cock it right there. Then the switch I'm talking about right here, to put it into viewing mode, is this one. You can see the red dot maybe there. So now it's wide open, and I can really set up the shot and do all that. Get it back on there. And then with my dark cloth, so it's good dark cloth with a reflective outer side to keep me from getting too hot on a hot summer day. Or underneath, nice and black. Then I can really see my image, and it's already nicely framed up. And then while I'm under there, I'm going to use this loop right on the ground glass to get a magnified view and really get it perfectly focused. Because at f16 and 4x5 is not that much depth of field, because it all varies proportionally to your format size or your sensor size. That's why you can't get limited depth of field on an iPhone, because the sensor is so small. You have almost unlimited depth of field. But f16, I'm not going to have that much depth of field to work with, so I really want to get the focusing right. So I'm going to use this to very precisely focus. And all right. And then the concept for this is a family portrait inspired by a favorite photograph by Brian Ulrich from his Copia series, where there's this family in Olin Mills studio sort of setup, and Dad is holding this ridiculous huge Epson projector. So we just got a new vacuum cleaner. I thought it'd be fun to do a ridiculous self-portrait with a vacuum cleaner that you'll see in the stills that I'll include somewhere in this video. So there we have it. We are set up, we're focused. I'll check the exposure and metering again with this kind of meter, which is a handheld meter, very useful. This is a particularly useful one for low light. Like I said, I could also use my digital Micro Four Thirds Olympus to set the exposure, but this is nice too. So I'll do a reading, and it's about EV17. So at EV17 and 400 ISO, and I can do a 60th of a second. And I can actually do between f16 and f22, whatever that works out to be, f17, something like that. So I set the aperture on the lens there, and I'll set my shutter speed, the outer ring, set that to 60th. Then I close down the shutter, put it into active mode instead of viewing mode, make sure my bag bellows is out of my way. Now if I were doing sort of a regular shot, I'd put in the cable release, screw that in there. Then I take the shots that way, but because this is a family portrait that I want to be in myself, I'm going to use a self-timer, which I put in one of my pockets. There we go. Here's a little old manual self-timer. It's probably one of my oldest pieces of equipment. It's from the 40s or 50s. But anyway, I'll screw that into the shutter. It's just a standard shutter. It's really cold today here in New England. It snowed, actually. Fortunately, it didn't stick. The ground wasn't cold enough. Alright, so cock the shutter, set my self-timer. We are ready to go. Now I'm going to take a film holder. So I have a whole backpack just for my 4x5 that has loaded film holders in it, and the lenses, the camera, other little things like my loop and my meter. But here's a film holder, kind of a standard double-sided film holder. So I get 2 shots out of this. 4x5 is slow, and you work hard for every shot. And here's where the dark side will come out, as you'll see. And when I take a shot, I'm going to flip it around from the white, which means unexposed, to the black, which will mean exposed. Hey, my neighbors. Okay, so we slide the back in here, and the back of most all 4x5s is really cool in it that it lets you slide your film back in place of the ground glass, and the ground glass actually shifts back and the film slides in under it. And so then the film plane is going to be exactly where the ground glass was, which is exactly where you focused. Okay, so we are all ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out the dark side and make sure everything's good up front, and flip it around so I can see that it's been exposed, and now we're ready to go take a shot. So I'll go get my family and we'll see what happens. Great, and I'll include my email somewhere in the notes, so feel free to shoot me an email. And if you like this video, it'll be my first instructional YouTube video. Thanks.